It's my great pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, uh, Reverend France Davis. And uh, this is truly a testament to uh, it's worth the waiting for Reverend Davis. We uh, wanted to hear from him in February uh, during Black History Month, and he and his lovely wife came down, but we had a mishap, and that lecture did not happen. And afterward, I took them to dinner, and they said, I said, yeah, we'll definitely want to have you come down again and hear from you. And Reverend Davis's wife said, let's not do it during February when it's snowing. And I said, I agree. And so we put this on the agenda for fall semester. So I'm very happy that they were able to come all the way down from Salt Lake and that we can hear from him today. I'm going to keep my introduction short to some of the most important things. I think Reverend Davis will introduce himself and his background and his experiences in his talk today. And I think there's a lot that you can learn from him. So he was born in Georgia in 1946 and eventually made his way to Utah, taught communications at Westminster College, and also served as a pastor at the Calvary Baptist Church in Salt Lake City for 46 years, after which he retired. He has 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. And we're really thrilled to welcome him to BYU, or you've been back to BYU, and look forward to hearing from you and anticipate your questions for Reverend Davis. Reverend Davis.
Hey, good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. Sorry, it's not a good afternoon to you. Maybe I should use the microphone and say good afternoon to all of you. One of the first things you ought to learn about the African American experience is that it is called responsive. It is called responsive. That is, if you say good afternoon or good evening or good morning or good afternoon to somebody and they do not return the greeting, in my father's house, my father would tenderize certain parts of your anatomy. And he would tenderize those with a belt or with a strap that he kept and used regularly on us. So I'm glad to be here. I have with me my lovely wife, Willeen, who is the mother of our 3 children, the grandmother of our 4 grandchildren, and the great-grandmother of our 1 great-grandson, whose name is Marcel, and he's 14 years old. So it's good to be here today. I came down last time and got here late, and you were gone, or the students were gone, and so was the speaker, who was a professor, Dr. Jaja, was the speaker here who spoke in my place. What I'd like to do today is talk to you about the African American experience in Utah, and then say a couple of things about myself, and then open it up for some questions that you may wish to have answered. And if you're big enough to ask the question, I'm big enough to answer the question as well. Let me start in 1820. In 1820s, there were African Americans already here. One named James Beckworth. James Beckworth was fur trapping in Logan, and he taught us by the name of the county which Logan is in, Cache County. He taught us how to store furs by digging a cache in the ground and using it as a place to store furs. James Beckworth. The oldest book in the Utah Historic Society's library is a book written by James Beckworth, and I would recommend it to you for your reading. He not only spent time in Utah, but spent time in Illinois and in California, and the Beckworth Trail is named for James Beckworth, who was here in the 1820s. That's 20 years before the Mormon pioneers came, and when the Mormon pioneers came, with them was Harkley, Greenflake, and Oscar Crosby. They came along with Brigham Young and settled in Utah, at least Mr. Green did. And Green's family still live in portions of Utah, Salt Lake, as well as other places in Utah. In 1847, 1850, Elijah Abel was here and helped to build the temple and the tabernacle downtown Salt Lake City. Elijah Abel and his sons. He owned a restaurant, but he and his sons were good at carpentry and at work, and so they helped to build the tabernacle and the temple, which is now being remodeled downtown Salt Lake City. By the end of the war, the number of African Americans living in Utah were about half slave and about half free. Those slaves were called colored servants. The other half were called just Negroes, because they and as they lived here in Utah, 1860 or so, 60, 62, 63, 61, and African Americans were here, about half slaves and half free persons. By 1890, the number of Klansmen were growing in Utah as well as in the rest of the world, but so was the number of African Americans growing in Utah, and they were growing in such a degree in Utah that they found themselves excluded from all of the churches except the Nazarene, the church of unified church, which didn't believe anything in particular, but believed everything in general. And African Americans thought that they ought to have a place that they could worship and worship freely their God as they saw it. And they started Trinity African Methodist Episcopal Church and Calvary Baptist Church, both of which were started at least 4 years before statehood was declared here in the state of Utah. Uh, Statehood came in 1896 once the Mormons gave up slavery, polygamy as a total practice, and they gave it up. And then the start of the Calvary Baptist Church and the Trinity African Methodist Episcopal Church. Out of those churches came all of the other institutions of African American experience here in the state of Utah, including two churches that were started. Wall Avenue Church, and that was a Baptist church, and a Methodist church that was started down the road a piece. Blacks came in to take jobs at the military institutions and bases that were places where military people were assigned. So African Americans came. They worked at those institutions, and they continued to work until 1972. In 1972, I was a student at UC Berkeley, as well as many other colleges. How many of you are taking 75 hours of college credit per semester? None of you? None of you are. I took, on average, 75 hours of college credit per semester. I went to 5 different colleges: Merritt, Laney, Bay Cities Bible Institute, as well as UC Berkeley. And they heard about or read about a story about a crazy UC Berkeley student who was taking 75 hours of college credit. And Dr. Rick Reiki was chair of the communication department. He called me in the middle of the day and offered me a job taken in a place where I only had heard about it from military people, Utah, Salt Lake City. I took that job and came to Salt Lake, and when I got here, the university had arranged a place for me to stay. I had had a telephone installed, and when I arrived, the landlord said, "Not here," and wouldn't let me move in. So I, in fact, lived on campus for the next year because the landlord wouldn't let me in. But Dr. Boyer Jarvis and I took the landlord to court, and we've got him to offer any of his 100 or so places that he had in Salt Lake City. Well, as a result of that, Utah now has a Fair Housing Act. Before that time, Utah did not have a Fair Housing Act. 1972. But as a result of that, they now have a Fair Housing Act. We also took on the United States' government. The MX missile was being prepared to be a missile that was a part of the United States' military arsenal, and we took that on. And Dr. Doctor of Law, who taught law at the University of Utah, and I were the leaders of that movement. Dr. I can't remember his name, but we took on the MX missile and got the MX missile eliminated from the arsenal of the United States government as a weapon that would be used in times of war. Later on, Utah was one of 5 states that decided that the federal law regarding Martin Luther King holiday did not apply to them. And so we took on the federal government and Utah state legislature, and the first year the bill went down to a resounding no vote. The second year, Mrs. King came, and we were able to get a bill passed in the state legislature, and you now have the third Monday in January as a legal public holiday named Martin Luther King Day. It was first named Human Rights Day. Anybody know what's wrong with Human Rights Day, the third Monday in January? Anybody know? What's wrong with that holiday? It's the third Monday in January. Is that it already exists as Human Rights Day in December. So now we had 2 Human Rights Days and no Martin Luther King Day. Finally, the legislature just a few years ago passed legislation that declared that the third Monday in January would be declared as Martin Luther King Day. It is a holiday. The legislature changed their meeting time from the third Monday in January to the fourth Monday in January, and all of that happened because of the Martin Luther King holiday that was passed by the Utah State Legislature. Well, I've been involved in Utah for 40 plus years, pastor of the Calvary Baptist Church for 46 years, taught at the University of Utah communications for 42 years, and it was the University of Utah, not so much Westminster. I did teach at Westminster College, but I taught for 42 years and retired from the University of Utah. Those were years that were interesting because we started the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, was started by the Calvary Baptist Church. We started various complexes for building housing for the elderly. In addition to that, come on in. We started days that were set aside as special days for getting your hair cut and your hair done in Salt Lake City. And we started all of those as a result of the efforts that were made by the NAACP. Now we have a Martin Luther King streak in Salt Lake City, and it is the only streak that's named Martin Luther King Boulevard that is not in the hood, not in the ghetto. It is 6 South, and it is that street because Trinity AME Church, the Mignon Richmond Park is on that street, and it also has the housing complex that the church, Episcopal Church built, is on that particular street. So it's called Martin Luther King Street, and it is still not a street that is in the hood, but it is a place where African Americans can go and find peace, rest, and setting up. We also have a street in Salt Lake named um, uh, by the lady who started the civil rights movement. Her name was, I can't remember her name either. Rosa Parks. We also have a street in Salt Lake that's Rosa Parks Street, and we have a street that's named France Davis Boulevard because it is a street that's in front of the Calvary Baptist Church. So we have a number of streets that are named for people of African American descent, including one for Karl Malone as well, who was a famous uh, basketball player in Salt Lake. He and John Stockton owned a lot of dealerships, and he still owns the largest Toyota dealership in the world. The largest Toyota dealership in the world is owned by Karl Malone, and it's in Salt Lake City. So when you get ready for a car, you can go to Karl Malone's place, and of course, with the tariffs that have been assessed by the President of the United States of America, you pay your tariff and you can buy a car from Karl Malone. Well, I've shared enough of my experience and the experience of African Americans in Utah. I've been speaking long enough to know, however, that students who come and professors who come to hear speakers come with certain things on their minds. So tell me what you would like to know, and I'll see if I can answer that for you. Yes.
Can you speak to maybe the advantages and disadvantages of going through the courts with your civil rights work, as opposed to kind of more like maybe like kind of changing community minds, or because I understand it can be a very slow, tedious process, and just wanted your thoughts on that.
One of the three forms of or parts of government are legislative, executive, and the justice system. So we thought that maybe the best way to get things done for African Americans and for other people of color was to go through the courts. So we went through the courts, and the courts upheld most of the uh, the arguments that we were presenting to the courts about the need for African Americans to be accepted as full human beings in uh, not only in the state of Utah, but all across the United States of America. Yes.
How has African American religious? Yeah, I can use that. How has African American religious participation changed over the years in Utah, if at all?
Religious participation in the state of Utah changed in 1978 when the Mormon Church had revelation that now all eligible males could hold the priesthood. So it changed in that way. It also changed in that more recently with the young people leaving the African American churches and going to provide music in the other churches that called the Well and other churches, for example. So it's changed in two major ways. One, in terms of the legal aspect, after the Mormons changed their belief, so did the Southern Baptists, so did the Catholic, and so did the Episcopal. And it's also changed in terms of the music presentation. Did I see another hand back here? No. Yes.
Would you say? Thank you. What would you say is the biggest thing that people should understand about civil rights in Utah today?
Well, the biggest thing I think that people should understand about civil rights and about African Americans is that they are all people. All of us are people, and we're entitled to the same rights, privileges, as well as consequences that any other people of the state of Utah or the United States of America are entitled to. So the biggest thing is to understand that people of color are people who, just like any other people of the United States of America. Yes.
What is the biggest policy change that should be made in Utah, and how do you think we can all work to accomplish it?
The biggest policy change has to do with housing and education. I think that you as students can call your legislators. You can write handwritten letters to your legislators and get them to understand that you are concerned, not just African Americans are concerned about these rights. So the right to a fair education, make sure that there are scholarships available for students who cannot afford to go, and make sure that the laws are enforced. The laws that are on the book are enforced. Yes.
How has your faith and religion impacted your work in civil rights, or how is it connected to it?
I have always been religious, and I have always been Baptist. Uh, the day after the announcement was made by the Mormon leadership, for example, that said that all eligible males could now hold the priesthood, we also, when I got to my office, all of the press was there, and they asked me what I thought about the new announcement that had been made. I told them we had always believed that we had the priesthood. that we had always believed that in terms of getting to heaven, that we could get there without uh, having to change colors in order to be there. So I think the greatest impact of my religious belief has been that African Americans are entitled to all of the rights, all of the endowments, all of the privileges that any other uh, person of religious faith is entitled to.
Reverend Davis, can you talk about what inspired you to become a pastor? That what inspired you to embark on this kind of spiritual journey that also involved civic engagement and political activism?
We have always believed and still do believe that uh, in the call of God, that God calls certain people to be His spokesman, and that uh, and I received such a calling from God. Not only did I receive such a calling from God, but we have also always believed that you ought to put feet and hands to whatever you believe in your head. That it's not enough to believe that you ought to love one another, but you ought to show that by your actions, by your deeds, by your ways. And so I was inspired to move toward every people of the United States of America and otherwise as well, uh, by the belief that God is concerned about all of us as human beings. Does that answer?
Did your interactions with Martin Luther King and marching in Selma when you were a teenager, did that contribute to this decision?
Uh, During my teenage years and my first college experience at Tuskegee, I had a chance to march with Dr. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and others from Selma to Montgomery. And so, yes, it did have an impact upon me. It did set for me an example of what was possible from a religious leader. My father and my cousin were also religious leaders, but they did not believe that it was necessary to do anything about your belief. Dr. King, on the other hand, believed that you ought to take what you believe, put hands and feet to it, and then bring about the change that happened. So, yes, I was highly influenced by Dr. Martin Luther King. I would say that among my mentors were my father, my cousin, Dr. Howard Thurman, who taught Dr. King, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That those were my four primary mentors that led and guided us in terms of what to do and how to do it.
You had mentioned earlier that you would like to see changes with policy with education and with housing. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more upon housing specifically and what you're noticing.
We built a housing complex in Salt Lake City that is for the elderly. The elderly African Americans were not allowed to move into many of the complexes that existed. And so we built a 30 unit housing complex unit for housing. I have been for 10 years a member of the Utah State Board of Regents. The Board of Regents made all policy regarding public institutions in the state of Utah. University of Utah, University of St. George, University where the person was killed here a few years ago. And so I made a lot of the policies and appointed many of the leaders that were a part of that education movement. One we got from here on this campus. He is now one of the 12, one of the leaders in the Mormon Church. His name is Dr. Hollins. And so he became leader of the Utah University, well, anyway, the one university that's just down the street. Utah Valley University, yes.
I was just wondering, as a born and raised Southerner, what is your favorite and least favorite thing about Utah?
My least favorite thing about Utah is that they are undercover more in terms of their racial attitudes than they are in the South. In the South, they tell you your place is in the kitchen. You don't deserve to be here. Here in Utah, people will tell you you're welcome and then treat you as if you are not welcome. So the unfavorite thing. The favorite thing that I enjoyed most about Utah is that Utah is willing to change. That if educated people are willing to make a change and to consider what you had to say. Senator Hatch, for example, was a good example of a person who made lots of changes because I recommended that he make some changes in terms of his position. So, and your president of the LDS Church that just died, President Niels, came and talked with me before he delivered a speech to the NAACP about what African Americans were doing in Utah. So I think people are willing to change, and that's one of my favorite things about Utah. The other not so favorite thing is the way my children were treated. My children went to school here, and they were told on what sides of the street they could walk on. They were told that they could not invite certain musicians to come to Utah because they were African American. So it's not a favorite thing, but a thing that's not so favorable.
You talked at the beginning a lot about different stories of the African Americans who first settled here in Utah. And we can kind of see in our current administration with the anti DEI push that there's a lot of these stories that are kind of getting like pushed away, that we're kind of trying to, like, we can see with like the Museum of African American Cultural History, like they're getting defunded, that kind of thing. So especially in this time where a lot of that history is kind of trying to be kind of thrown under the bus a little bit, per se. Why is it so important to be sharing these stories of African American history?
Well, it's important for us to understand that all of us contributed to the building of this country, that it wasn't a particular group of people, but all of us participated in the building of the United States of America. And this country in particular is a country of immigrants. Everybody came except the Native Americans. Everybody pretty much came from someplace else. And it's important that we remember the stories that are in the libraries in Washington, D.C., and that you read books like Dr. Ronald Coleman's book on blacks in Utah. Other questions?
I guess I'm just curious what advice you have for staying strong and finding your voice and being courageous and making positive change in society.
Well, I would recommend that people who want to make positive change, that they join groups that are making positive change, like the NAACP, like CORE, like SNCC, and other organizations that are making positive change. And that you learn from those who are doing it to find your voice and then to speak up loudly and clearly to the needs that are there. Somebody mentioned the problem that we're having currently. We've done away with the DEI, whichever term you want to use for it. But we've done away with that kind of thing by passing laws. And we need to remember that those people are just as important part of our country as are others. Okay, you have another class you need to get to, so thank you for your time and your effort. Thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for your participation in this discussion here this afternoon. And I hope that you will find a group that you can be a part of, and you will join that group, and that by joining that group, you can then participate in the bringing about full rights, full privileges for all of the people of the state of Utah. God bless and keep you. Thank you.